County Council meeting is now in session. The Honorable Christy Cox will give the pledge and invocation.
At the outset of my prayer tonight, I'd like for us to have a moment of silence in recognition of the passing of our 41st President, George Sr. Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you for the many blessings and constant mercies that you extend to us. Thank you for the opportunity and the freedom we have to govern ourselves. At this time of year, we're especially thankful for the sacrifice and love that you showed us by sending a beacon of hope, love, and sacrifice. I pray that we would use your sacrifice to remind us all to extend mercy and kindness to each other. Please protect our men and women in uniform, watch over them and their families, and bless them for the sacrifice of putting their lives on the line to serve us. Pray for those who are less fortunate. May we all be reminded of our duty to take care of those who are vulnerable and need our help. Finally, I pray for wisdom and guidance to all of us serving in public office, that the decisions we make would be honest, fair, and just, and most importantly, that they would be in the best interest of the people that we serve. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Michael, we don't have any oaths of office. And I don't believe we have anybody appearances, so we got just the 2-minute part where, woo. Okay. I'm not going to be able to screen this for everybody, so if you came to talk at a public hearing about about a rezoning, you might want to wait because you have unlimited time to speak, because here on this, you only have 2 minutes. So if you're listed, if it's the agenda item you want to speak under is listed under public hearing, just wait until it comes up. So if I call your name and that's what you're wanting to speak for, you didn't have to sign up. You can just wait until the public hearing. Everybody get that? So when I call your name, if you're waiting for a public hearing, just wave me off. First person is Scott Hare. Her? Yes, sir. And remember, you have 2 minutes, and you have to give your name and address to the clerk to council.
My name is Scott Herr. My address is 5350 77 Center Drive, Charlotte, 28217. Good evening. My name is Scott Herr. I'm the Vice President of Land with MI Homes. I'm here to talk about issue 1810, which is the rezoning that's in the old business section of the plan tonight. I just want to I'm here to speak about a minor clarification, but I think it's an important one. In the notes, it says that when staff made the recommendation at the planning board, they recommended to not approve. But they made that condition based on the TIA, and it wasn't clear to them that we were going to commit to either making the TIA improvements that were recommended or waiting for the pennies of progress work to be done. When we spoke to them and made it clear to them that we would commit to making the TIA improvements, they then supported the plan that was presented to the planning board and did so at the meeting. So it's a minor clarification, but the optics of it could be disadvantaged to us. And as you know, at the planning board meeting, the plan was approved because it's a great plan. It's less than 1 unit to the acre with almost 70% open space, and we think it's a great model for what development can be in Lake Wylie. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, sir. Next person's Wendy Day. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Wendy Day, W-E-N-D-I-D-A-Y, 772 Riddle Mill Road, Clover, 29710. Almost gave my work address. Good evening, council members. Tonight I want to our community is asking that you deny this rezoning request for the MI Homes project at Riddle Mill and 557. This housing development will be a detriment to our infrastructure, which cannot handle this population increase. The 49, 557, 274 routes are a nightmare to navigate already, especially during the morning and evening hours, due to the high volume of cars now, with no alternatives to avoid the areas. This is causing longer commutes, as well as more accidents, which create even more delays. There just isn't enough roadway for additional 450 to 600 cars in our roads. The area of Riddle Mill Road, where the entrances to this proposed development will be, is already in bad shape due to the volume already there. Our fire department will be negatively impacted by this development as well. What happens when there's an emergency? Our fire department can't get to the calls because of the heavy congestion already. The potential for a tragedy should be seriously considered. With more residents, there will be more need for more fire trucks, equipment, and firefighters to respond to the calls. There's also the impact of additional children in the schools, requiring more buses, teachers, and classrooms. These are all costs our community should not be forced to incur. Fort Mill is trying to solve an issue that we have an opportunity to avoid. Please consider our request, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Next person is Norma Hatley. That's Norman Hatley.
Norman, yes, sir. I want to speak to you also about the MI home project. I have several neighbors in the community, and we all oppose it, and we would like for that to be denied because of the traffic, the congestion, the problems, and the overload of the infrastructure. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you
Norman T. Hatley, 800 Riddle Mill Road, Clover, South Carolina. I call it Lake Wiley, though, but closer to Lake Wiley.
Oh, do it.
Okay, so what we're asking to hold off on this development, please, and really would appreciate your consideration. I dodge holes on the road way down here. I've tried to get a road repaired on Riddle Mill, a hole in it in front of the concrete plant, and it took me about 5 months. I finally had to call congressmen and senators to get people out there just to fill in that hole. That's been a few months back this year. And for example, people were dodging that hole and about hitting somebody else head on just to get around it, because you about have to stop. But they finally patched it, but now you go like this when you drive over it. So our roads are pitiful. We're way over congested. The schools are over congested. Buses, they built 2 brand new schools back behind me on Oak Ridge. Buses one day were coming down and they were trying to turn around the top of the hill at Quarter Mile Road. I was coming up the hill, and luckily I saw it in time. The bus driver wasn't even trained properly. They were on my side of the road facing me head on, backing into Quarter Mile Road to turn around. So I called the county about that. But we're having a lot of problems. People are driving up and down my road, going way over the speed limit. You have to ride with your hand on the horn just to keep people on their side of the road. This is just part of the problems. I understand law enforcement is overstressed. Fire department has trouble getting where they're going, to ambulances too. And several other issues with the infrastructure. The littering, and for example, another thing about when I call law enforcement to check on some guns going off back behind my property, I timed them. It took an hour before anyone even showed up. Have I run out of time?
You ran out of time a little bit ago, but I gave you some more time.
I'd appreciate if you'd hold off on this construction, this zoning change for the MI homes. Thank you for your time and service.
Thank you, sir. Next person is Greg Willis.
Greg Willis, 1021 Riddle Oak Lane, Clover, South Carolina, 29710. I'm against the 557 Riddle Mill also, stay in the denial. I'm hoping by now, as our elected officials, everybody's had a chance to go down through and see the congestion and what we actually deal with day to day. I wanted to just reiterate about the infrastructure, about the roads. They're overcrowded. We had pennies for progress approved before the sale and development was presented. That overflow pennies for progress was for the congestion that we have now to even it out, not to build 217 houses on 222 acres. I'd also like to address the 222 acres isn't all buildable. But if you take out the buffers that they've put in, 100 feet off, the creek that runs through there that you have to keep a buffer off, plus the roads, they talk about 222 acres. Not all of it is buildable. So they're going to put 217 homes on less than 220 acres. I just hope you stay with the denial. Our infrastructure cannot handle it. Traffic, everything is just a nightmare. That's all I got. I appreciate it.
Thanks, sir. Next person is Elaine, is that Goff?
Yes. Good evening.
Welcome.
My name is Ellen Goff. I live at 981 Bonham Road in Lake Wiley. I reiterate everything that the previous speakers have brought up relative to the MI Homes development, and I urge you strongly to deny their request. But I'm also sort of wondering why I'm here again, because we, Lake Wiley residents, have been before you again, and again, saying we can't take the growth. We're not anti-business. We just can't take it. We can't take it 'cause we can't get out on the roads. We can't take it because our schools are overflowing. The lake can't take it, not all this construction. And you well know that half of all the stormwater calls and violations come from this area. I don't know what we can say to you month after month, whether it's 6 months or 6 years ago. We have been pretty consistent about wanting our quality of life protected, about wanting our natural resources protected, and you don't listen. There are a couple of you do, and we know who you are, and we appreciate it. There's several of you that don't listen and don't care. And we have no other place to go, and we expect you to protect the things that we as taxpayers and landowners require of you. And I just would like to ask you to think about this, because it's not just these 217 homes. It's the 217 on top of the 325, on top of the 250, and so on and so on and so on. And there's no more to say. We're hoping that you listen.
Perfect timing. Next person is Don Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Don Clark, 3878 Concord Road, York. I want to talk about rezoning also in a general sense, and I'm not talking about the small parcels that are the subject of the public hearing tonight. I have stood before this council and the Rock Hill City Council on several occasions in response to developer requests to rezone large parcels of residential property to allow them to build more housing units than current zoning permits. The typical presentation explains the benefits of clustering the homes and enclosing the property with beautiful buffers, but the end goal is always the same. Where, for example, 100 home sites are permitted, 200 or more could be requested. Beautiful buffers, sidewalks, internal parks, and swimming pools do not address the resulting impact on York County schools and roads. There could be twice as many school-aged children and twice as many cars, and that's the issue. I'm concerned that every rezoning request granted by this county has the potential to create a precedent that will be cited in every subsequent rezoning request. If the county grants a zoning change that directly or indirectly creates an economic benefit to a landowner and or developer A, on what basis can it deny a subsequent similar request by landowner or developer B? I have often heard developers or the landowners who are under contract to sell their lands to developers pending a favorable zoning change cite the fact that the land cannot support development under the current zone classification. I will again repeat, it's not the county's responsibility or obligation to relax zoning requirements to either increase the value of the property or make the developer's business model work. In addition, the county should not make decisions that increase impact on schools and roads where there is no provision to pay for or mitigate the resulting impacts. You can set the correct precedent tonight by denying the MI request. I would like to speak in favor of the purchase of the 1,900 acres, and I would also like to thank the council for the approval of the Veterans Memorial Park. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Next person is Karen Clark. Be sure to name and address.
Sure. My name is Karen Clark. I'm at 3878 Concord Road, married to that tall gentleman that was just up here. He's very good at speaking. It's not really my strength. But I appreciate the gentleman who spoke, the clarification for the Pennies for Progress, because that's what I wanted to address tonight. I never would care to see Pennies for Progress used to mitigate a traffic issue that's been created by increasing density on a development that benefits the developers or a landowner or a production home builder. And the way it was presented on the agenda, there was certainly a connotation that could be interpreted that Pennies for Progress was being used to help mitigate that traffic area, that it was going to be improved from an F to a D, and that after the Pennies for Progress improvements were made, it could potentially be increased even further. And I think it was also mentioned in a previous meeting that we're hoping that all of our intersections will now be a C from now on, a C as in cat. So improving it to a D is really not that great of an improvement. I also want to mention in terms of traffic, I had the opportunity to frequent a new business in Lake Wiley on Monday night, and from 274 and 49 all the way to the bridge, thankfully we were driving in the opposite direction, it was bumper to bumper and not a single tire was moving. It was completely stopped from 274 at 49 where the public shopping center is, all the way to the lake. And so when you're encouraging people to bring businesses into our community and the traffic is such a deterrent, you're really going to end up not having businesses be successful because they're going to choose to not frequent them during times of day when the traffic prohibits getting there on a timely basis. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next person is William Powell.
Those feet.
You're a good man. Next person, Tom Nichols. There he is. And Tom, remember, you got 2 minutes.
Let me go stand in the hallway.
Remember, you got 2 minutes. You need to give your address to Karen.
I'm Tom Nichols. My address is 2113 Bestbrook Road in Fort Mill, 29708. Okay. Well, thank you for letting me ask you a couple of questions that, let's see, I've only followed this county government just briefly, but I can see to some extent it's a labor of love. So we thank you for your service and, you know, for your dedication to York County. My questions revolve around the traffic, which is similar to what, you know, a lot of these people have spoken about. But a lot of folks like myself thought that as the development came about, the road traffic would be considered as a part of the infrastructure, that it would go up as the development went up. Now, I've been told that may not be the case. So I was just curious from y'all as to how do you consider the road traffic as you look at approving development to come along in the county. And then secondly, this may not be directly related to you, but I've always been told that the state road money that's supposed to come back to York County gets diverted through some politician in Florence to the coastal areas. And so I'm wondering if that's, you know, a contributing factor that we don't have the money to build the roads that we're supposed to build to support the construction that we're doing. And if that's the case, I always get told there's nothing we can do about it. We just have to accept it. Well, I don't think that's acceptable. So I'm wondering, you know, do y'all have some idea what we could do, you know, for York County to be treated fairly with getting our money back from the state for the roads? And that's all I had to say.
We are a donor county, so you're right about that.
Is there anything that can be, I mean, I keep being told there's nothing we can be done about it, but I don't think that should be the case, though. But I know that's not your
Right.
situation
It's up to the
directly.
state guys.
So,
Thank
but
you.
that's all I had to ask of you.
Thanks, Tom.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Next person is Dorothy Johnson.
Dorothy Johnson, 6400 Royal Pines Drive, Clover, South Carolina, 29710. I'm also speaking against the MI density. Two things, the density and the early application by developers for extensions, which is ridiculous. But number one, I just made these notes, so the roads can't handle the present traffic. Everybody agrees on that. I mean, it's a no-brainer. You just get out there on 49 at any time after 4:30, and it's all bumper to bumper to bumper. And once an accident happens, forget it. The schools are overcrowded. There's cookie-cutter developments just springing up all over the place. You know, each house looks just like the house next to it or 2 doors down with very little land. I actually had a developer tell me that, oh, people don't want grass to cut. They prefer parks. Who wants to send their kid down the street to the park? Wouldn't you rather have the cat and dog and kids playing in the backyard? A neighbor of mine was looking for almost a year trying to find a 3-bedroom home that had more than just a 50 by 100. They wanted some land. And yet these developers keep saying, oh, no, nobody wants land. But I do applaud, there was, at the last meeting, I heard there was a developer that built some kind of homes in Rock Hill, I think, a half acre or an acre each, and they sold. You know, so, you know, these developers have to listen. The homes will sell with more land. The country feel is just quickly disappearing. The developers just want to build maximum amount of houses on minimum amount of land. And I'm just asking you guys to listen to the people you're representing. You know, we all are saying the same thing. You know, please don't let it fall on deaf ears. And then my second point again was the no sense to side with the developers who apply early for extensions, because of course it's in their best interest, not ours. So thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Next person, CW?
I'll wait.
You wait? Okay. Was that? Okay.
Yeah.
Billy? Done? Oh, there you are. Remember, you got 2 minutes.
I got it. I'm Billy Dunlap, 1053 Christopher Circle, Rock Hill, South Carolina. I'm speaking as the President and CEO of the Rock Hill York County Convention and Visitors Bureau. Members of council, thank you for allowing me to speak, and thank you for your service to York County. I was told on Thursday that because of the proposed land purchases coming up tonight, that our H-Tax funding would drop from $900,000 to $300,000 over the next 18 months. This would drop our overall budget from $1.4 million to $800,000. Reducing our H-Tax funding to $300,000 will devastate the CVB. That $600,000 cut will also have a ripple effect for hotels, restaurants, attractions, and more. We have 12 new hotels coming to York County in the next 2 years that are looking for us to help them meet their supply and demand needs. 3 years down the road, we'll be wondering where all of the tourism dollars went. As you know, these events just don't come to York County because they like the area. They come because we recruit them, we give them funding. When our funding goes away, those events will go away too. I keep hearing that we are trying to get you in line with how other CVBs are funded. Most CVBs receive the lion's share of their A-tax from the county and their municipalities that they serve. Our issue is that the city of Rock Hill has a Parks, Recreation, and Tourism department. By having a tourism arm, the city receives the majority of their A-tax funding collected inside of the city, and that leaves us with limited revenue. Getting events to come here is competitive. It's all about facilities and money. Our facilities stack up with anyone, but our funding does not. Just in South Carolina, we compete with Greenville, Columbia, Myrtle Beach, and Charleston. The budget for these CVBs ranged from $7.8 million to $40 million. I stood before you less than 6 months ago to secure funding, and I was told by some of you that you would give me a year to prove myself. We are on target to generate over $20 million in economic impact this year, more than this organization has ever generated. We've proven ourselves, and with that success, we are now staring down a 43% cut in our budget over the next 18 months. I support the land purchase, just not at our peril. York County is growing and our funding needs need to grow. I hope you will consider alternative ways to keep our funding stable and sustainable. The current plan will cripple the CVB and devastate tourism in York County. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And last person, it looks like you were probably hold off for the public hearing, Dave Gibbs.
Giles, and I'll hold on to the public hearing.
Okay, boy, you ought to be a doctor. That looks like Gibbs. Okay, so next item is consent agenda. Before we have a motion, I want to pull out one item. At the agenda meeting Wednesday, Councilmember Love requested that we have item number 25 on there, which I believe it's number 25. Let me check again. So, okay, yeah, so I just want to move that to new business because that's a change in the planning department, so I don't want it to slide by any council member. So it's more appropriate to be under new business instead of consent agenda. Everybody good?
What number of new business is that gonna be?
That'll be number 1 under new business.
Oh, okay, we got no other new business, okay.
Now we can have a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And motion carries. Next item, hold public hearing. Case number 1822 to rezone from AGC to BD2 at 124 Power Place Road in the Fort Mill community. Anybody here want to speak against? Against? Anybody want to speak in favor? I do. Yes, sir.
Please do it.
I bet you're a lot of fun at parties. Yeah, yes, sir, Mr. Shanahan. Well, do you want to, David? Feel free to.
What we've been doing.
You have the information in front of you, but I'm happy to.
Any council member have a question in that regard?
Yeah, I think for the people in the audience, it'd be a good idea.
I think that's what we started having. Steve was doing
Okay,
it.
so it looks like there's some people that had that plan in action, so we'll let you follow through.
Okay, I'll keep it brief. It should only take a few
Sure.
minutes. This is case number 1822. Property's just over an acre, currently zoned agricultural conservation. Proposal is to go to business development 2. Property is located in Council District 1, 124 Powell Place Road off of Highway 160 in the Fort Mill community. The existing site contains a home and a small business. Property to the north is zoned BD3 and industrial development and is currently used for commercial and industrial. The west is BD2, currently just has one house located on that property. And the property to the south is zoned PD, planned development, and is currently used for multifamily apartments. And comprehensive plan indicates neighborhood residential for the property.
Did you want to talk about, did you want to just talk about them as we get to them?
That's fine.
Okay. Do we have anybody else that wants to speak in favor? Do we have a motion to?
Second.
Discussion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Do we have a new motion?
No. Public
Oh, that's right, public hearing only, sorry. Next item, hold public hearing, case number 1823 to rezone from BD1 to AGC at South Carolina Highway 55 and South Carolina Highway 161 in the Clover community. Anybody here want to speak against?
We want to let him explain it first, or we'll?
Let's, whatever, sure, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, you covered part of it. I just did want to clarify in your packet, it says it's a rezoning of 1.5 acres. It's actually a rezoning of 5 acres. The total parcel is 6.5, so the remaining 1.5 acres would stay the same zoning. Property located in Council District 3's intersection of Highway 55 and 161 in Clover. Property's currently vacant. Zoning and surrounding area is a mix of agricultural and rural development, and the use is predominantly rural residential in the area. Comp plan calls for a rural center as a land use.
Okay, so does anybody here want to speak against? Anybody in favor? Yes, sir. Tim?
He's gonna say the same thing Mr. Powell said.
Good evening, Tim Heline, 1830 Hans Mill Highway. This property is 6.5 acres on the corner. We've had it listed for a while for the seller, and we've got a buyer that would like to buy it and just put a house there on 5 acres. We'll leave that corner, which is about 1.5 acres, under the current zoning, which all four corners there are BD1. And he and his wife want to put a nice home up, raise a family there, and not have where they can put more houses. They just want to put one house on 5 acres. A couple of years ago, we looked at rezoning that. We had a client that wanted to put build a Dollar General there, and it met with a lot of dismay from folks. And so that got turned down, and the people spoke, and you listened. But this one, we're going back, doing a D zoning or a lower zoning to ag. And I think because no one's here talking against it, the buyers have spoken to the neighbors, especially the McGill's across the street. And the buyers grew up less than a mile away. They want to get back closer to family. They would be here tonight, but the wife fell off a ladder today, broke her ankle. And the husband, Mr. Bales, he's trying to fix a sewer for his sister that just bought a donut shop in town, and they have a big sewer mess. So that was it.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to speak in favor? Do we have a motion to close?
Move close.
Second.
Discussion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Next item, hold public hearing, case number 1824, to rezone from AGC to RUD at 3363 South Carolina Highway 324. David.
The only thing I really have to add to that is the property is currently used as single-family residential. 2 structures currently on the property. I think it may be a house and a accessory structure. Surrounding uses are mostly rural residential, and the comprehensive plan suggests agricultural for the property.
So does anybody here want to speak in favor? Sir. Yes, sir. This is in favor.
Yes, sir.
I gave you a curveball. Had to make it interesting.
Looking in favor, I think my family bought it 15 years ago. We're looking to build a single-family home there to raise our children, my wife and I.
Could you give the clerk your?
Oh, Chris Davis, it's 3363 Highway 324.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Anybody else want to speak in favor? Yes, ma'am.
Tennille Davis, 3363 Highway. I'm the wife, the better half. We recently moved from Fort Mill, South Carolina. We would love to build on the family land. I have 2 children. We moved from Baxter. It is, if you know Baxter, it is very tiny to raise a family, and wouldn't want nothing more than to have my kids grow up in this kind of environment. So, sorry, just a little emotional. That's it.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else want to speak in favor? Anybody opposed? After that, I don't think anybody would. Yeah. Oh, well. Yes, sir, you did.
I'm David Giles. I currently reside at 3475 Highway 324. We have some concern about this whole area right in here because of the original coveted deed restrictions on this property. And I realize from listening to things that's gone on here before, somehow or another, the county never considers this in zoning that I've been able to determine. It's up to the property owners to find out this stuff's going on and then pursue legal action to stop it. The original deed restrictions on this piece of property that was originally a 66-acre farm that was divided into 4 tracts. The one that they're requesting here is part of an 18-acre tract that wasn't supposed to be subdivided to begin with. So how it got to from 18 to 8 to 10, and now they're wanting to pull 2 more out of it. We have some concern over that because it's, we all purchased our property knowing that nobody would be right on top of us, that we would be AGC and we would be protected, that we couldn't subdivide our property. So just like to see some consideration maybe on that topic of that area in this matter. I'm not against somebody having a home to raise their kids in, but I'm concerned about the deed restrictions and stuff from this, and I have the original plat and stuff here. So, but thank you for your time on this matter. We appreciate it.
Yes, sir, thank you. Anybody else opposed? And be sure to name and address.
I'm Janet Barrow. I'm at 3429 Highway 324. I live adjacent to this property, and I just want to reiterate what Dave has said. We purchased this property several years ago in anticipation of retiring here and building our retirement home, which we did, with the understanding that those plots were protected and that they couldn't be subdivided, that there would be one home on each of those tracts. And I would ask that you hold that, to make that happen, because that was what we bought this property in good faith, believing that was what was required. So thank you.
How many acres are you on? How many
We
acres?
have 15.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else opposed?
I'm Mike Barrow, 3429 Highway 324, Rock Hill. We don't oppose people building a house. I mean, that's it. When we moved in, there was a barn on the property. We were told there was acreage there, and they would come back and build a home there. Well, they have moved a modular home on there, and we're concerned, are they gonna keep the modular home and build, take 2 more acres and build an additional house, which would be right adjacent to our property? So that's our concern. We wanted the privacy. We were told that was the intent when we purchased the land, and now we're finding out that it can be changed in any way. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Anybody else opposed? Do we have a motion to close?
I do have one question though to ask. Were staff aware, is there a deed restriction? Were we aware of that?
It's not something we're aware of, but we can do some research on that. But we,
I have a copy of that if you'd like to make a copy.
Mr. Roddy?
You'll get it to,
I was going to ask the question, if in the event of it comes down to it's not on file with the county, but one is out there somewhere, what does legal tell us to do in a situation like this? If it's not recorded with the county about deed restriction, but there's one.
Presumably, it's recorded, so
Yeah.
if it's recorded of record,
No,
and we
it
should
has
act
to be
accordingly.
recorded, doesn't it? Isn't that the law? You good?
Yeah.
Do we have a motion to close?
Move to close.
second.
Discussion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Next item, council to hold a public hearing and approve third reading of an ordinance authorizing the execution and delivery of a fee in lieu of ad valorem taxes agreement to provide for a fee in lieu of ad valorem taxes incentive to GPT Parcel D Owner LLC, including its affiliated and related entities, inclusion of certain property in York County, South Carolina, in a multi-county industrial or business park, and other matters related thereto. Anybody here want to speak against? Against? Anybody want to speak in favor? We have a motion up? Yes, sir. In favor?
Yes.
Be sure to give your name and address.
George Preddy, 611 Kingston Way, Fort Mill, South Carolina. I work with Parker Poe, and we represent Crescent, and we want to, we hope that the commission will support the fee in lieu for this parcel and for the next one, as we'll have an opportunity to create more great inventory for manufacturing in York County.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else want to speak in favor? Do we have a motion to close?
Move to close.
Second? Discussion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Do we have a new motion?
Move to approve. Second.
Discussion? All
I
those-
do.
Yep, sorry, Ms. Cox.
I like to take the opportunity when we have a group of folks that come out to a meeting, just to let them know that we have a committee that's dedicated to evaluating whether or not these FELOs are indeed something that's beneficial to the county, and that includes our county treasurer and our county manager. And so I think it's important for you all to understand that these aren't approved unless that committee has spoken on that and they believe that it's a good deal, financial deal for us.
And
Yes, sir, Mr. Winkler.
To add on to what Councilmember Cox said, also, we see all the ones that get a fee in lieu of offer or something like that, but many times businesses are coming to economic development and asking for it, and they are not always, not everybody that comes that looks to expand or relocate here gets a fee in lieu of agreement. There are many that are told, no, this doesn't meet the criteria we're looking at, or that type of thing. You're welcome to come, but we're not gonna give you a fee in lieu of. So just wanna make sure, because sometimes it seems like people think that everybody that comes or is interested in coming gets a fee in lieu of agreement. I sit on the committee of I chair the council's Economic Development Committee, and we see these a lot of times, and not everything is just automatically rubber stamped, as Councilmember Cox said. It has to meet criteria, and the numbers have to match what our county treasurer says, and he checks that type of thing out before it comes before us.
Thank you, sir. Now I've lost my place.
Number 5. Got a motion and a second, so.
Motion second.
Oh, yeah, we got to vote.
For approval of this?
Yes.
Okay, so anybody, any other comments? Question on the motion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Next item, council to hold a public hearing and consider third reading of an ordinance providing for the issuance and sale of not exceeding 21 million.
We got a number 5 under public hearing.
Did I skip one?
They look very similar to number 4.
Ah.
There's 2 of them. One of them's
Gotcha.
GPD, one of them's GPT.
Yeah, I did skip one. Council, thank you, Chad, appreciate that. Council to hold a public hearing and approve third reading of an ordinance authorizing the execution and delivery of fee in lieu of ad valorem taxes agreement to provide for a fee in lieu of ad valorem taxes incentive to GBT Parcel C owner LLC, including its affiliated and related entities, the inclusion of certain property in York County, South Carolina, in a multi-county industrial business park, and other matters related thereto. Anybody here want to speak against? Anybody want to speak in favor?
Got one coming.
Yes, sir.
Ditto.
This is a companion parcel to the one you just approved, so it's basically the same. Thanks for your consideration.
Yes, sir. Anybody else want to speak in favor? We have a motion to close public hearing.
Move close.
Second.
Discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Do we have a new motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion, question on the motion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Now I'll get to that one. Council to hold a public hearing and consider third reading of an ordinance providing for the issuance and sale of not exceeding $21 million aggregate principal amount of general obligation bonds of York County, South Carolina, to defray the cost of a project to serve outdoor recreation, agricultural, ecotourism, development, tourism, and other purposes, and to provide economic development benefits, which project includes the acquisition of approximately 1,900 acres of real property and improvement of any related infrastructure and the cost of issuance thereof, and other matters relating thereto. Anybody here want to speak against? Kind of kept you guessing there for a minute. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, County Council. I'm C.W. Sin. I live at 520 West Mount Gallant Road, York, South Carolina. I'm against acquiring this property and using H-tax funds to acquire it all. Now, if you want to come up with another method to do it, I'd probably be okay with that, but not using all the H-tax funds because they'll be eat up for probably 15 or 20 years, and I will never get what I'm looking for in the Agro-Tourism Committee that I serve on. And I want you to be aware that if you plan to put an agro-tourism facility out there, then just save your money because it will be, read my lips, a failure. Nobody from the western part of this county is going to go to the furthest eastern part of this county for much of anything. I'm not even going to go there, and I live in Newport Terza community. I'm not going to drive over there. But that's a different story. And if you look at the Crossroads study, it will tell you, without looking at site specifics, that this place will not work for an agro-tourism site, period. How do you get there? Many major roads? I haven't found one going there. Are you going to build Dave Lyle Boulevard? Is that how you're going to do it to 521? You know, there's a great division in this county between east and west. This will divide it even further. You might want to look at the good town does well. 1910, Rock Hill tried 3 different times to have their own county. In hindsight, I wish they'd have done it. You know, fact is, I'll help you do it right now. Just as far west as they are, that's as far west as they can come. They can go east, they can go north, can't go any further south either. But let's just let them have their own county and do whatever that they want to. No major roads. To my understanding, I don't think there's any water or sewer out there, so I reckon you're gonna do that too. The other thing that concerns me is when you had your first reading on this, I went up, after you'd already passed it, I went up to the county council member and I said, can you tell me any more about this? No, it's a secret. I'm like, it's a secret? Well, yeah. So you had one vote on it, and it was a secret. When you had your second vote on it, I noticed that the person who came up and spoke in favor during the 2 minutes, who was chairman of York County Forever, when I went and looked at the county website, his term had ended in August. You just reappointed him in November. So maybe the way y'all's committees work, when your term ends, you still keep going on, I reckon, as a member, even though you're not officially on there, because there was a 2-month time frame when he could have been reappointed to that. You've required Bethel and Lake Wiley, when they wanted to have a park, to tax themselves. Mr. Roddy said, I want the citizens of York County to know we're not a Parks and Recreation. Those people tax themselves. We didn't tax them, they tax themselves. Do I think York County needs a Parks and Recreation? Yes. I've always been in favor of it, but y'all see differently. I just think if you want to acquire the site to save the river frontage, then do it, but don't do it with H-tax funds. And if you plan to put an agro-tourism site out there, and I'm on the agro-tourism committee, I'll resign from the committee, because I will not be a part of anything that I think will further divide this county. And I can assure you this will, if you do certain things with it. Thank you for your time.
You would stop when I stuck a cookie in my mouth. Anybody else opposed? Anybody want to speak in favor? I'm sorry? Oh, okay. Name and address.
Beth White, 404 Pendergrass Road, York. I'm in favor of the land purchase because I'm always in favor of large purchase of land for conservation or any kind of keeping the land in a large tract, but I am against using the H-tax for all this money. And my question to you is, for such a large sum of money, why wouldn't it go to a vote before the people? Because that is, you're using tax money from the people. So I would just like for you to think about that and maybe put it to the people for a vote for such a large sum of money that's going to be used by tax dollars. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else want to speak against? Anybody for? want to speak in favor? Yes, sir. Great, be sure to name and address.
Good evening. Creighton Hayes, address is 1586 Clarendon Place in Rock Hill. I'm here on behalf of York County Forever. There's several other commissioners here today to speak in favor. Unfortunately, Lindsey Walker, our chairman, couldn't be here this evening, but I came in his stead, and we think this project is maybe a generational type project for the county of York. It's a unique site. I'm sure y'all are familiar with the location of it, but on the Catawba River, which of course we can't create more land on the Catawba, but we can preserve it. And I think this would be an admirable way to do that. Lindsey's done a lot of research, and we'd ask you to consider a few reasons for purchase consideration. This actually might have an increase on the property values in that area of the Catawba area of York County. It actually could increase property tax revenue by increasing the property values of the surrounding area. We believe this is possibly a way to cut down on the public cost of managing this land. I believe that it was initially purchased, or it was purchased 15 years ago or so, and was slated for development. Personally, I'm thankful that it's not developed, or was not developed the way it was planned to, but we actually feel that the public cost of this could lower for the county. Could be an attractive way to bring recreation and corporations to that area. Of course, it's along the I-77 corridor. We think that the access to the park could be improved. There is not a lot of infrastructure, as has been stated, but that could be improved to help access to the park. And it may be attractive for companies to locate facilities to that area, which would also increase the tax base if they were to do so. Of course, this could increase tourism in York County. The purposes of this property are many and varied, but as has been stated, this would be a potential site for aggregate tourism. But of course, that's up for the county council to decide where to put a facility such as that and how to fund it. But we've committed and voted to approve or to recommend to the council to use a substantial portion of our budget for this purchase because we feel so strongly about it. But would ask the council to approve this ordinance and the purchase of this property. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. Anybody else want to speak in favor? Oh, Dennis. Creighton, did you say you had other people here that want to speak in favor, or did I misunderstand you?
They're here. I don't think they wanted to speak.
Gotcha. Okay.
Dennis Merrill, 1011 White Horse Road, Rock Hill, 29730. Thank you, Karen. Mr. Chairman and ladies and gentlemen of the council, I appreciate this opportunity to speak briefly to some of the positives associated with this wonderful project you put together, in my view. One of the few projects that has the magnitude of opportunity that the county council has had the pleasure to consider. And as I think back to those opportunities that have come along, probably the highlight that I can think of was in 1964, when the York County Council voted to support the construction of York Technical Education Center. Some of you will remember that. It opened the doors of opportunity for tens of thousands of York County citizens to develop skills needed to attract business and industry to our area, to retool tens of thousands of our citizens, many of them returning from places like Southeast Asia, where they defended the nation. and basically they were re-equipped to have jobs, raise families, and live in York County and not have to move off to find employment. I would suggest to you that Project Destiny is different, but no less important in terms of the significance of this project. And I know that you, because you're already at the third reading of this, you appreciate it, and you understand that there's not parcels like this lying along the Catawba. It's rare. It's a gem. And you got a heck of a bargain by negotiating it very quietly and not allowing the owners to understand that this was a government-funded activity. Indeed, it's going to take a while to pay it off. It's going to take a while to develop it. But our children and our grandchildren will appreciate it. It'll be something that stands out, not only in York County, but across the whole state of South Carolina, across the whole southern region. This kind of project is almost unheard of. I commend you for taking that position. I thank you, York County Council, Mr. Chairman, for taking this opportunity to set York County aside and to think about the future of our people. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dennis. Anybody else want to speak in favor? Yes, ma'am. Betty.
Good evening. Mr. Merrill said it all, but...
Well, be sure to name and...
Oh, I'm sorry. Betty Rankin, 2600 William Lytle Place, Rock Hill, 29730. I was not planning to speak until Crossroads was mentioned, the Crossroads study. And just to remind those of you who did not serve on the board when the first agritourism committee was formed, I was part of that. Carol Deacon was our chair. It was citizen-driven. And the Crossroads study was a result of the county advertising to landowners if they had X amount of acres that they wanted the county to consider purchasing for an agritourism center. So we had the parameters of the number of acres, and the property owners had to submit through the county. This area was not considered because the property owners did not, at that time, submit. So I just wanted to set the record straight on that. The other thing I wanted to emphasize is the scenic Catawba River. I was privileged to serve on the Scenic River Advisory Committee right after I moved down here as a non-voting member. And I was very impressed with the work that was being done, but the fear was that this land would be out of reach for anybody to get to the river. And I think it's amazing that this county has the Broad River on one side and the scenic Catawba River on the other. And it's just going to be a wonderful opportunity for generations yet unborn. The third thing I wanted to address, we have right now 5 horse boarding stables in our area within close proximity to this. We're not isolated. We're not the far eastern part of the county. My farm is adjacent to part of this land. And in fact, much of this land was my father's family's land from the 1850s until they lost the river property in 1930. He grew up in a big house over there. I grew up hearing the tales of the river and the animals. He was real good at storytelling in the way of Uncle Remus and others of that era. The other thing I want to point out is that we already have 5 farms in the area that participate in the Art to Agriculture. So to be a non-isolated area. My farm is 5 miles from Galleria. Waterford is a stone's throw away as the bird flies. So it's just a miracle to me that you all sitting here had the courage and the wisdom that you all have, but you were able to use those two things together, and you were able to see not into the present, not the immediate future, but for generations. And I agree with Dennis, this is an opportunity that will reap benefits far beyond our imagination. So I just urge that you continue with that wisdom and courage working together and approve this monumental purchase. It is a scenic river. That's going to be national news. I'm getting ready to blab it now once it becomes formal, because at one time the Catawba was listed as one of the most polluted rivers, one of the top 10 endangered rivers in the nation. Now it can be at that number 1 of what York County Council has done to preserve a section of the scenic river that once it is gone would never be raised, would never be again. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. It's been a long journey. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else want to speak in favor? Dickie?
I'm Dickie Harper, 6370 Old York Road, York. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, always a pleasure to appear before you. Appreciate your service and appreciate what you're doing. There's so few people that want to preserve or conserve land in York County. Land evidently doesn't mean that much to a lot of people, and I applaud you for wanting to do this. I do have questions. I have concerns. We're taking in that 1,900 acres. It's going to take a lot of planning and a lot of management. Now, what we hadn't heard is what's going to be done. What's going to be done with this property? Question I have, is it going to be put in a conservation easement? If the conservation easement is written, is it going to be written such that if, and I guess I'd emphasize, and with my friends CWCN, if something could go on there like an agricultural event center, is it going to be written in such a way that that can go? Is that pertain to recreation? Is it going to be all recreation? What does and what will the conservation easement hold? What will it be? How will it be crafted? Perpetuity. Is this going to be in perpetuity? You know, those two of you that are lawyers, it seems to be different definitions of perpetuity. To me, it means forever. Good lawyers seem to argue it doesn't necessarily mean forever. But I hope it is forever, that we can preserve this and preserve that, that area. But with that, and if it is tourism, and going back to agritourism, the county still doesn't have a definition of agritourism. We haven't got that far yet. Agritourism to me means small businesses that are involved. Is it an agricultural event center go there? That's a different thing, you know, but agritourism is going to be these folks that have small operations or large operations, bringing the folks in for a corn maze, different types of things like that. Ecotourism, I don't know if we got a definition of ecotourism in the county either. You know, that's another thing. What does ecotourism exactly mean? What's the land going to be used for? And with a lot of people coming in there, and I'm not down there, you know, I'm in the middle of the county, but with the folks that are there and the farmland that is there, when people start coming in, you know, people can't seem to think that all open land is just public land. Well, that's not the case. You know, are these people going to be protected? How are these folks that are there with the management's going to be provided? Which gets to another thing in the funding. Now, I don't know whether it's true or not that all the hospitality tax is going to be funded with hospitality tax dollars. The information we've received from some of us from Farm Bureau, from the Chief Counsel and Chief of Staff and Legal Counsel for the Ways and Means Committee, it doesn't say anything that this is an approved use. You know, it's specific on what can be done with the hospitality tax dollars, the accommodation tax dollars, it definitely says it cannot be used to reduce a bond. So, has that been researched? And all these are questions, those several questions that I have about the conservation easement, the funding, the plan and protection. Those are questions, but it is good that you're willing to spend the money and take the effort to preserve and conserve this land. Thank you, and thank you for your time.
Yes, sir. Anybody else want to speak in favor? Yes, sir. Be sure to give your name and address.
Odell Bailey, 612 Favorwood Drive here in Rock Hill. I'm a member of the York County Fair Committee. We very seldom get an opportunity to find a property or a situation like the one we have before us right now. I remember when I first got out of service and came home, there was this issue with Cherry Park. They were trying to establish Cherry Park. I remember one of the councilmen who supported that idea. In the next election, he was defeated by someone who was against it. I know for a fact that once you put concrete or develop any area in that regard, it's done. And for me, somebody who has enough vision like the county council, and we appreciate you doing that, to consider this and try to move forward with it, but not only for us, our children and future generations, but for York County as a whole. We're going to have businesses that come into York County and leave York County. We've always had that. We have to work together as you will and have done before. You diligently take it serious to spend the taxpayers' money. Well, you have an opportunity this time to spend the taxpayers' money to not only benefit us who are here now, but future generations. I'm sure that the county will guide this project and make sure it's what it needs to be. But if we don't take advantage of this opportunity, then opportunities like this don't come around every day. A lot of people say something about the monetary amount that's being spent, all right? We can spend money on a lot of different things. We have an opportunity to spend this money we have on something that would benefit the whole of York County. One thing that I think that York County doesn't realize, and the people of Rock Hill sometimes, there are not very many places in this area that have the parks and recreation systems that we have. Cherry Park was a boon for Rock Hill. Manchester is there for your use, and a lot of people don't take advantage of that. Well, I always say this, and my father said it before me, you don't miss anything until it's gone. Don't let this get away. It's something that York County needs and that we can work to make it successful. I'm not a genius, but I know that dollars spent for our future generations is money well spent if we have the guidance and direction to do it and the courage to make that decision to do it. I can understand Mr. Winkler's reluctance in following this project, but hindsight's 20/20, and we don't want to be in a situation where after we decide that we couldn't get the funding or we didn't want to spend the money, and this project's gone. We could get somebody to come in and build thousands of houses in that area and just tear up the land. All right, that means it's gone forever. We have a chance to have a river access area for people on that side of the county. And the gentleman mentioned something about not spending the money in this area. We live in an area in Rock Hill where our road's been tore up for several years, but we know that it takes time to make progress. And this is one time that we can't pass up this opportunity for future generations to make this progress. And if you are good stewards of this situation, then I think we won't have any regrets down the road for making this purchase. But if you allow this property to get away and they stick a bunch of homes out there, then you got to look at the issue of you're going back. You're going to have to build schools, you're going to have to build sewer systems and all this other stuff out there. All right, that's going to increase population density. All right, whereas we can preserve this property and use, you don't have to use all the property for conservation either, because there's another plat of that land that's away from the river. If you want to, build some, have some construction out there. But I think it's to our advantage as citizens of York County and Rock Hill to take advantage of this opportunity. And I hope you will. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else want to speak in favor? Have a mo-
Billy's,
Oh, Billy, I'm sorry.
you thought he was just waving at you?
Good thing Bump's sitting over there. He's got that angle
I
view.
appreciate that. You need my information again, Karen? All right, thank you. I put a sheet of paper at your space there that tells you a little bit about the impact that tourism has in York County and what it's done in 2017. And how, we talk about A-tax, we talk about H-tax, but this is direct impact to every citizen in York County, how it affects them, how it affects the taxes that they pay, and how tourism is an economic driver in York County. Now, I stand here conflicted because I support this purchase. I really do. I just don't support the impact that it will have on the Convention and Visitors Bureau. I think that it's unique to have the opportunity to purchase land that is going to be used for tourism purposes, but then cut the tourism agency by $600,000 annually in their budget, to cut the organization 43% to purchase that land. When you look at the impact that tourism has in York County, and you look at the impact that it has with hotels and restaurants and attractions, ask the restaurants and the hotels that are around Nation Fort High School about Battle at the Rock this weekend and about the impact that it had. And ask the hotels and restaurants when the NCAA regional cross-country meet was here, and there wasn't a room hardly in York County during that time period. Because what happens is when the CVB funding gets cut, there is no Battle at the Rock. There is no NCAA regional cross-country. There is no FBU Top Gun, because there's not enough money to bring those large events here. We end up bringing smaller events, and that's less heads in beds. And like I said earlier, we've got 12 new hotels coming, and they are depending on us. We've already met with them, and they're upset about where we're at now going forward, because we can't, to add 12 new hotels, which is a 30% increase in supply in York County, to add that amount with where our funding is now is not good enough. We've got to increase our funding to be able to meet that supply, to be able to meet the demand that those hotels need to be successful. Well, now we're talking about going the other way because of the cut that's going to come from the purchase of this land. Now, there are other opportunities that we're looking at for new revenue. Now, the one of the main ones that we're looking at could work. It could fail drastically. If it fails drastically, we lose another $100,000 out of our budget. So instead of being $1.4 million that we are now, we lose that 600. We're now at 800. We lose that additional 100. Now we're at $700,000. And we're competing against communities that have CVBs like I talked about. If we drop to that level of funding, we're the 12th largest CVB in South Carolina. We're behind Florence, Georgetown, communities that are much smaller than us, that we're behind communities that want to be us. And it's not a fair fight when we're going out and trying to get events when the funding is not there to be able to do it. And that's my point behind what I'm saying today. I support the land purchase. I really do. I think it's something great. And I think it's something that 10 years from now will be something that we can be proud of. But what happens from year 0 to year 10 on tourism when your main organization that is promoting tourism in York County does not have the means to support tourism where it needs to be? And that's my point here. But like I said, I support the purchase. I just don't want to be the organization that's paying for most of the bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Billy. Anybody else want to speak in, yeah, Tommy?
Tommy White, 3443 Shandon Road, Rock Hill, also the fire chief at the Leicester Fire Department. And we are agreeing with the council on this purchase of this property. Of course, it's in our district, so you know it's going to be well taken care of between us and the sheriff's department. But, you know, as this thing grows, we would definitely like to stay in the loop of this thing. A lot of, you know, the things that be planned and all, we've got people that would participate in it, so we kind of stay ahead of ourselves on this thing, because we will be the first responder if anywhere in that area that's going to, since the entire thing's in our district. But the biggest thing is that you got our support.
Thank you, Tommy. Anybody else want to speak in favor? Yes, sir. David.
David Oxendine, 2550 Neely Store Road, Rock Hill. I had a great and wonderful speech, and I dropped it in the hallway, and I believe Dr. Merrill picked it up. said it so much more eloquently than I can, but I just want to reiterate a lot of the things that he said, is that this is a jewel. I mean, this for the next century can be something that we can look upon and say, wow, we did the right thing. And without this, without approving it, we'll just have to bring those folks that were talking earlier about the MI Holdings, sort of the housing development, and hear the same story that they're saying right now. You know, without developing this or using this, we're going to have 1,900 acres used for other things, such as houses, concrete, light pollution, noise. So I would encourage and hope that you would pass this as a means to make it the destiny of York County and create that crown jewel for us in this region. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Anybody else want to speak in favor? Do we have a motion to close?
Second.
Discussion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Do we have a new motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Question? No.
I'll
No?
just quickly say what I've said each time it's come up. I appreciate all the work staff's done on this. I see the potential for what it could be, but I also still have a lot of unanswered questions. And that's why I have not been able to support it on the first two readings and will not support it again tonight. There are just too many things. And one thing I have to say, and I don't want to get into sounding like I'm, putting the West versus the East again, but it always amazes me when I hear people say, we have the Broad River on one side and the scenic Catawba River on the other side. We have the scenic Broad River over here too. It just always, things like that amaze me when it's something that's said like that. But, there are a lot of questions depending on some of the uses that it could be used for. The county might have to pay back some H-tax money if it's used for something that doesn't apply to that. Where's that gonna come from? If it turns out that it's gonna be, agritourism or, the whatever study we come up with that says we need to do something there, that takes infrastructure. If we're spending the next 15 years worth of H-tax to pay for the land, where's the money gonna come from for the infrastructure? Where's the money gonna come from for the maintenance and the running the park that could be such a great thing? It's one of those things that I see the potential. We've got, about 1,500 acres preserved in the western part of the county that York County forever was a big part of. Worth Mountain is over here. And it's something that is a jewel to the county, even though probably half the people out there or watching on TV don't have any idea where Worth Mountain is. But it's right here in York County. It's over 1,500 acres. There's fishing ponds, there's hiking trails, you can dove hunt, there's dove fields, there's all kinds of things over there. There's even on the scenic Broad River, there's a new boat ramp that you can get in and you know, go right up and down the river some. But it bothers me a little sometimes that we have the potential for this, but we have no plan for this. And I've heard it said, well, we had to move quick on the land, we gotta buy it. There's a limited time frame on what we can do, so we didn't have time to put a plan together on it. Well, that's not a good reason to buy something because you had to move quick and you didn't have time to put a plan together or a thorough plan or do that type thing. So I think it has a ton of potential. I'm just not sure in my mind yet that it is the best use of the next 15 years worth of H-Tax, or if it's not H-Tax, still, by the time $21 million worth of bonds are repaid by this county, it's $27 million that we will have paid back for those bonds. I'm not sure that's the best use of $27 million worth of y'all's money for the next 15 years, and that's why I will not support it.
Mr. Roddy?
First off, I want to thank Mr. Shanahan and his staff for bringing this to us. It was definitely a visionary type project. It was one of those type projects that I got on council to see. I didn't get on council to plan for the next 2, 3, 4 years. I got on council to have a vision for York County for the next 15, 20 years. And I think that this project falls definitely right in line with that. And going back to the gentleman that said Mr. Merrill picked this speech up in the hallway, proud to let you know that I'm still wearing my York Tech pin, and I appreciate all your service you gave to the college some years ago. I wanted to go over a couple of things, and I always try to make notes when people get up and speak, and definitely we're getting involved with this project because of, I see it as three folds: for people, potential, and the possibilities. That's what this project brings to York County. You know, we have all that in mind. We're not buying 1,900 acres to say, hey, we're not gonna do anything to it. It's just gonna be there for green space. We don't have a definite what we're gonna do at this piece, that piece, but it's potential. Obviously, we kept it a big secret because Mr. Merrill spoke of it. If we would have let the seller know it was county government or any government entity looking into it, the price would have went through the roof. So that was part of the whole secrecy of, you know, not that we're trying to keep it from the Joe public what we're doing. We just didn't want to let the buyer know it was York County coming to the table to make a land purchase. And certainly, speaking of the value of it, you know, going forward, you know, it's unlimitless what we could do with this piece of property. And there's not too many properties, and York County's not too many pieces of property anywhere contiguous together in this magnitude that any county can go in and buy. And whether it's down the road, whatever we decide to do with it is definitely gonna be to the benefit of the citizens. It's definitely gonna be benefit to the taxpayers, and hopefully this will be a game changer. You know, someone mentioned there's no infrastructure out there. If there was water, sewer, and roads out there, this piece of property would probably be upwards of $100 million, and there's no way we would be able to afford to be able to get this. So at what we presume to be a bargain basement price for 1,900 acres, you know, we can do a lot of things with it. One more other note is to address Mr. CW. We haven't talked about just putting an ag center. You know, that's one of the things that could come up down the road, but we're not purchasing this property with saying this is a #1 site to put an ag center. But if it come up down the road, if we get the infrastructure in and if it fits, that's one of the possibilities. We didn't put it in, we're not ruling it out. We haven't put anything in. We haven't ruled anything out. So that's where the possibilities come in at, of all the different things that we can do with the property that could be the game changer. That could be whether it's the Cherry Park or the Manchester or anything that brings value to the community. We talk about all the pressure points in Fort Mill. We talk about the pressure points in Lake Wiley, TKK. You know, whatever we decide to do with it down the road could be a possible alternative to some of these areas that is so overcrowded. But I just want to try to touch on a few things that I heard that people were getting up making mention of. But I'm excited about it, and whether I'm on council or the next generation's on council that's dealing with it, I think this has got the bones that we could put something on to really benefit everybody throughout the county. So I'm happy to support it. We're good.
Ms. Cox?
I have to make notes or I go off in rabbit trails is what I'm told, but this is a very rare opportunity. Where else in this county is there 1,900 acres available for us to do anything that's one landowner or two? It just doesn't exist. That's why when this opportunity came up, it was just an extremely unique opportunity. And while there are 1,500 acres on the west side, there was no such thing on the east side. And I think people had given up on that because it wasn't there. But here is a property owner who previously was going to build homes. When they put the property up for sale, this just became a very unique opportunity that this council is to look at. I view this as an opportunity for us to vote for something for the existing people in this community. The CVB attracts other folks to come see us, but this is something that is for everyone in this room that lives here. And I do view this as a vote for the people, as a vote for all of the people of York County. And some folks may view this as divisive. I see this as unifying. I see this as a huge opportunity for us to have vision. By this vote, we use existing tax money in a better way. It allows us to preserve our land, protect our water source, provide opportunities for our existing public, and to allow public access. And it creates amenities that will attract high-quality growth. If there's anything that our economic development director comes, and I've visited our headquarters companies, what they are looking for are these types of amenities. The days of having to depend on warehouse and distribution are gone. We want better for our county. We want to use our resources wisely. This is a way to do that. This is what proactive, smart growth management looks like. It allows us to get our infrastructure ahead of the growth, and it protects our taxpayers from runaway costs and traffic nightmares that come with unbridled development. We talk about we want to be proactive instead of reactive. Well, here's a chance for us to do that. I recognize that this decision in many ways is a bit easier for me because I live in District 5, and the property that we're talking about purchasing is situated in District 5. But the benefit goes way beyond that. It goes to everyone sitting in this room and to all of us. And I want to thank my colleagues who support this for their vision, for them understanding this, that what helps one district helps us all. And to me, that shows me that this council is serious about putting people above politics. And I do want to take the opportunity to thank the rest of the council members for considering this and for giving this opportunity, which to me is the biggest Christmas present we can give to the people of our community, and put action to the words that we say. I do have one question, and I don't know if a question is appropriate, but in answer to the CVB question, I would like for us to understand how other CVBs are funded and make sure that we're doing that responsibly. So if you could respond to that.
Let me add on to that, too. You said before the meeting was this the time you want to say everything you wanted to say?
Sure, I can. To Mrs. Cox's question, during the last budget season, I talked about how other counties funded the CVB, and of the top 10 counties, we were the only one that gave a dedicated source of funding from our hospitality taxes. One thing I didn't do, and Bill and I found this out last Thursday, was look at how do the CVBs get all that money. In a nutshell, they earn it. The other CVBs, Greenville, Columbia, Charleston, those were the three that Billy told us about Thursday. They get the lion's share of their money with agreements with the hotels that they work with on their events. There's a 2% fee, not a tax, a 2% fee put on the bills. I am confident, based on the discussion we had with Billy last week, where there were already hotels willing to line up and participate and do that, that our CVB go out and get the money that way, earn their funding. We right now are an anomaly with the way we fund our CVB. We are not shortchanging our CVB. They get the lion's share of our accommodation taxes, and they've always gotten the lion's share of our hospitality taxes. This is going to get our CVB funding more in line with the other CVBs throughout the state. We'll still be more generous with hospitality tax dollars than the other district or counties of our size. In a nutshell, that's really all I want to say about the CVB, but I do not have any guilt about a drastic cut to the CVB. When we asked the question as to why they weren't already doing that, the response was, well, we were worried about getting our other funding cut from the county. Be honest, that's not the kind of answer neither Bill nor I wanted to hear. Rather than get taxpayers' dollars, I'd just as soon they got out there and worked with it with the hotels. The funding, the way this land is going to be purchased, everybody's talked about hospitality tax dollars, and that is the way we plan on paying for this. We had two options, a revenue bond and GO bond, okay? The revenue bond, all of our hospitality tax dollars is clearly locked up with that. That would have been 20 to 40 basis points higher going down that path, all right? Trusting that we have a wise council and wise citizens, we went down the GO bond route. GO bond route will take up some of our, the 8% debt limit, that's like the credit card the county has. Y'all have to spend without going to the voters. This $20 million will be about 19 that's actually borrowed, okay? The other million's coming from York County Forever. That $19 million that's going to be borrowed will reduce our debt borrowing capacity. That doesn't bother me. We're planning on paying off all our debt, GO debt, by 2024. So we're financing this with what I consider the most cost-effective way to do it. Now, as I've talked with some of y'all about, though, we do have a risk down the road that we might get 4 people on council that change their mind on how to pay that debt off. That's a possibility. I've talked with that with the voters that want to talk about this. I think I've talked with some of y'all about that as well. Down the road, a council could come along that changes their mind and say, you know what, let's raise the debt service millage to pay for this debt. That's a risk that we're running right now from a management perspective and the way it's being funded. However, we trust that the taxpayers of this county, as well as our council, will stick to the current plan of using the hospitality tax dollars to pay this. That money is coming from, yes, cuts to the CVB, as well as from the growth we've experienced in the hospitality tax. And I will, we've talked about this from the budget process, those hospitality tax dollars come from the unincorporated area. This is an unincorporated area project. You know, the lion's share of all the tourism-related activity that we have in this county is within the Rock Hill, Fort Mill area. Rock Hill, they market their own events, and they do a very good job of that. That's why Rock Hill has chosen to, I think in the current budget we're in right now, fund the CVB only $100,000, because they do their own marketing. I don't think you're going to see a drastic drop-off in the way Rock Hill's funding their events that they've got going on in the city right now in the future.
Ms. Love?
A project to serve outdoor recreation, agriculture, ecotourism, development, tourism, and other purposes, and to provide economic development benefits, which include the and other purposes. I blew it up like this big, and I still can't see it. And other purposes, and to provide economic development benefits. So I'm going to speak a little bit on our behalf without permission. And that's because the majority of those hospitality dollars are collected in our districts, a very large majority. I don't know what the exact percentage is. And I think there comes a time when, you know, you were sitting here and, you know, maybe this is one district and this is one district and one district here. There's 7 different districts. But there comes a point when you have to erase those district lines and you have to really be countywide. We are York County Council. We're not individual district councils. We represent everybody. And I think it's important that, you know, what if we had done this 10 years ago and 20 years ago and 30 years ago? Look at what this county would have. We have to start somewhere. And I believe, I mean, honestly, this is the first time I have really seen this council and York County management and staff have a true vision of something. We are out on a limb on this. And if you can't tell, we got a really, really intelligent and bright, whatever his title is over here. I never get it right, but our chief financial officer. And you know, this has all been vetted. This has all been very looked at by everybody. We're not just out there slinging hospitality dollars at something. You know, how many times do people say, you know, to those of us who are out on the lake and everything, gosh, you know, if only I could have bought a little cabin back in 1975, or if only I could have bought a little piece of something way back when. York County, this is a little piece of something. And it might be expensive, but we did get a good price on it. And you know, if those of us individuals could afford to do something like this on a smaller scale, wouldn't you do it? Wouldn't you do it for your family, your kids, and your grandkids, and just for generations to come? There is no way when I look at this, and I know Councilwoman Cox has been very worried and for nothing when it comes to me, because I'm gonna spend those hospitality dollars that are collected in my district on what I feel like is the very best use of those dollars. And I feel like this is the best use of those dollars. This is the best thing that's come before us in a very long time. I'm willing to trade a few fishing tournaments for this, Billy. You're gonna survive. You know what? You got it going on, and you're a survivor, and you're probably gonna turn around and get this 2% on all these hotels. You're talking about 12 new hotels. You're gonna probably come out with more money than you're getting right now. I'm very confident in that. So nobody's wanting to cut off the CVB. I think, you know, I'm speaking for myself when I say that I just want to do something that's county-wide, that lasts for a very long time. And I think this is it.
Mr. Williams.
Yes, I guess the one thing I didn't see was a division between east and west. I hope we're making some strides on that. I hope this doesn't cause problems there. And we can call the Catawba River scenic all we want. We have to work hard to make it scenic, as Ms. Rankin alluded to the fact that it was one of the most endangered ones. We could call the Broad River pristine, but we put a boat ramp on it, so now it's not pristine anymore. But you know, had we not done that, the Broad River is a great asset, and sometimes ignored, and it's the best thing to do. But yeah, when I looked at this project at first, there's several reasons that I could think of to vote no, but a lot of times all we got to do is find some reasons to vote yes. This council used to do a lot of forward-thinking things. This is forward-thinking. This is something that will be good down the road. Mr. Winkler mentioned about, you know, it could possibly cost us $27 million in money when you include interest, and that's true. That's still less than the people that bought it paid for it. So you know, I don't think, you know, even if we do goof this up, I think it's not unrecoverable. The biggest thing that caused me concern was what's been alluded to, is about you committing all the HTAX dollars to this project. The way it's written, I don't think that it makes that decision now. As Mr. Madden was alluding to, we're getting the bond and we got to figure out how to pay it back. So I do think there's room to not use all the HTAX, and I think the success of the tournament at the Rock does some things like that. And it could very well be that the plans going forward work out well, and we don't, you know, the HTAX is not a problem. But like Mr. Dunlap said, that could work, that could be great, and it could fail miserably. I think we need to be prepared for it just in case that it does. But not only do we not have to, you know, I think we have room to not commit all the HTAX there, but we used to fund the HTAX from the general fund. So there's other ways to fund the HTAX as well. So that's my biggest concern about this, is crippling one organization to do this. I think it's possible to do it without crippling that organization. I would encourage all of you to make sure that we don't cripple that organization. And I will trust that y'all will do that. But it is, to me, it's something that, you know, it's good for us. It's good to see us doing some forward-thinking things and being proactive instead of reactive, and I'll support it.
Mr. Johnson.
For those who are following along at home, it is passed. There are 4 votes to do this. They've said that publicly here. I'm just going to talk for a moment and tell you why I'm going to vote for it. I talked with Christie the other day, and I said the easy part's Monday night. I didn't know how the vote would come out, but I thought this was an easy part. This was easy to vote for 1,900 acres. The hard part's tomorrow morning. The hard part is creating an infrastructure, deciding what should go there. There can be trails. Right now, the trails are simply you're walking through a wooded area. Are we going to put trails there? How are we going to pay for those trails long term? What is that area going to look like? That's the hard work that has to come into this. But this is a once in a lifetime opportunity that can't be passed over. I mean, you've heard it time and time again from the council members. This is our opportunity. This is This is like approving York Tech in '64 or approving Pennies for Progress in 1996. This is one of those moments where you're going to look back 20, 30 years from now and you're going to say, that made a lot of sense. Because I can promise you at the time when they passed Pennies for Progress, there were probably a whole lot of doubters. And a whole lot of people said, this is crazy. This is not what the local government should be doing. Well, I believe local government should be preserving land and trying to do exactly what this was called, Project Destiny, control our own destiny. That's what this does. I'm excited about this opportunity, and I'm excited about working on how we're going to make this work, not just today, but over the next 10, 20, 30 years.
Chairman Blackwell, if I
Yes,
could
sir,
please
Mr.
add
Winkler.
One comment, and I know something was said that triggered a memory for me just a few short months ago. The seven of us passed a tax to make this county debt-free in 6 years. And we told all the citizens that we were gonna be debt-free in 6 years, to trust us on this. And the one thing that I was told by many of the citizens I talked to about it is, I like that idea, I believe in being debt-free, but my concern is in 6 years, when y'all aren't up there anymore, somebody's gonna find a project that's gonna be a really good reason to issue more debt and put the county back in debt. Well, guess what? It didn't take 6 years for us to find a really good project to now put us to where we will not be debt-free till well past the time we promised you just a few months ago, so.
Yes, sir.
Just to address that, in 2024, the debt service millage is still on course to go away. We are not paying for this with the debt service millage. That's the tax that's levied to pay our debt, to pay all these buildings. This debt, again, will be paid with hospitality tax dollars. This will not result in a tax increase to the taxpayers unless the council down the road were to do as Mr. Williams alluded to and maybe change the mind. That's why, again, I alluded to the smart voters in this county. But this does not change the plan that we outlined in the last budget to pay the GO debt off in 2024 and eliminate the debt service millage. Just want to make sure everybody out there listening understands that.
Thank you, sir. And I'll just wrap it up by saying what I've said in the past, that the council had the forethought to think about controlling its, or having control of its destiny instead of being at the mercy of future events. But and one point Mr. Williams made that I was sitting here thinking about when Bump and I got on council at the same time, we didn't hear a lot of the, like we hear it now, so many district-centric comments. We pretty much just, for the most part, what's best for the county. And this is one of those actions that is definitely what's best for the people. Not to mention the fact that it's within 85% of the population. It's within 4 or 5 miles of a major interstate. It's has so much promise for our future and green space that we can preserve and have with all the jobs. You know, we're the #1 job-producing county in the nation the past 2 years, and they need places to have quality of life. It's real important to all these companies that come here. So I think it's a win-win. I don't see any negatives to it. And we do have to plan for the infrastructure, walking trails, things like that, but that's just part of any time you do something like this, just part of the package. So, question on the motion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Next item, Cummings, Jim?
No, we had a budget, number 7, public hearing.
We do? Oh, I'm sorry, my handwriting covered that one up. Taking notes on everybody's comment. Council to hold a public hearing and consider the third reading of an ordinance to amend an ordinance entitled to establish operating and capital budgets for the operation of the county government of York County for the fiscal year commencing July 1st, 2018, to provide for the levy of taxes for York County for the fiscal year commencing July 1st, 2018, to provide for the expenditure of tax revenues and other county funds, to provide for other fiscal matters related to county government. Anybody here want to speak against? Anybody want to speak in favor? We have a motion to close?
Move to close.
Second.
Discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Do we have a new motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
She couldn't hear who made the motion. Was it Allison?
I made second.
So let's repeat the motion again for approval.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. Question on the motion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Next item. Jim? Yes, sir. Cumming representative to present the Capitol Facilities Construction update.
Good evening. Pleased to be here tonight to present a brief update to you.
What's your name and address? I remembered it now.
I'm pleased to be here to present a brief update to your capital building program. If you would, please refer to tab section 1. We'll begin with Moss Justice. We are nearing completion of the second of the 3 phases at Moss Justice. This is the 500-pound gorilla that's super complicated and complex, but like I said, we're nearing completion of the second phase. The second phase is the
bed bugs out.
We didn't have anything to do with the bed bugs, I'm quite sure, but.
Thank you, Mr. Williams, for bringing that subject matter.
We have a final inspection of the additions, which is phase 2. It's scheduled for late December. Furniture is scheduled to be delivered and installed by the middle to third week in January, and then starting to occupy in late January. Once we start occupying and fully occupied, we can move into the third phase, which is really the painful part, which is renovating the center section. A couple things that we do have that are prerequisite to getting the CO for that final inspection. That's paving the parking lots. We are doing some turn lane paving now, but everything is weather sensitive. We are planning to pave that parking lot behind the sheriff's this coming Thursday and Friday, ahead of the storm that is being forecasted. So any questions about Moss Justice? I've got some photographs. This is an aerial. It's about a month old, but the area that I'm talking about that's been paved, ready to pave is this. It's been set up for over a month. Weather just hasn't really been working with us. We're also milling and repaving this drive. This is a photograph of the lobby, main corridor rather, public corridor. This is a DUI courtroom, public defender's lobby, and probation lobby. Just to kind of give you an idea of where we are condition-wise of the phase 2. Next project is our family court. Structural masonry and is complete. We're working on metal studs and sheeting on the exterior. We're kind of in a cycle with some bad weather. Unfortunately, this project is a little lagging on the exterior. Interior-wise, we're ahead of schedule, but the critical path is on the exterior to get us dried in. We should be dried in somewhere around early January. It's the current plan. This is a shot of the back. The blue, that's the sheeting. It's the masonry on the exterior, but it's CMU and metal stud and sheeting exterior walls. Another shot. We were ready to pave. Again, we're in a kind of a bad cycle with some weather. And then shot of the interior. Our next project is the Government Center. Happy to report that we are nearing completion. We have a tentative final inspection for December 21st. There's a whole lot that needs to happen between now and then, but paving is one of them. If you've noticed, your parking lot right here is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. That's in anticipating paving all the area behind and inside. That is a prerequisite for getting a certificate of occupancy. Once we have that certificate of occupancy, the tentative move schedule is to IT, which is on the 4th floor, to move in first. That's scheduled to happen between the 3rd and 4th of January. 4th through the 6th would be the data center to come online, to move and come online. Then the balance of the 3rd and 4th floor would be moving between the 7th and the 11th. And then, 7th and 11th. The 2nd floor on the 14th, and fully occupied the week of the 21st with the 1st floor. Once we are fully occupied, then we will abate the asbestos and hazardous material in this building and it will be demolished, and then we will pave over and finalize our landscaping. Also have some photographs. Orientation is probably not the best, but this is at the front entrance. This is a shot of actually the data center. It's a pretty technical space. This is a shot of your council chambers, and then this is some typical casework. Not the best photos, but it kind of gives you a flavor of where we are. Public Works, pleased to report we're complete on this project. We've received all our certificate of occupancies for each building. This is an addition, this is a new facility, new facility, new facility. This area is the last piece to be milled and paved, and that will be done. Our goal is to have it done as part of the paving that's currently scheduled. Final completion should be towards the end of December. That will be punch list, finalized and completed. Of course, we're in a warranty phase for a year after that. And then our last component, is the recycling center. We will not be reporting on this project again. We are complete. It's been fully closed out, and we have executed 2 deductive change orders totaling almost $700,000. Tab 2 is our management schedule. The red line represents today. And if you'll notice, we are on the tail end of most of these projects. The 2 that will remain after this month are Moss Justice and Family Court. If there are any questions, I'll be more than happy to try to answer them.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Jim. Appreciate it. Next item, consider first reading case number 1810. Rezone from RUD to RUD1 and RC2 at 172 and 296 Riddle Mill Road in the Clover community.
Motion to deny. Second.
Discussion. Yes,
I'll start.
well, I saw.
She wants to start, that's fine.
Okay, well, he's been a gentleman. Ms. Love.
Well, she made the motion. so
We
she
going in
should-
alphabetical order.
Should get the first discussion.
So, the first thing that is very important for me to say is that MI Homes has put together a great plan. They've put a lot of time and effort into this, and the problem with it is that it's a great plan for an area that will allow 217 homes. This area, this parcel of land does not allow 217 homes. Visually, it is not less than 1 home per acre, which is what the people of this community are in hopes of. I just want to make this quote, and you're going to hear it again. It's because it's the best one I can come up with, and that is, you can't order a quarter pounder at the drive-through and expect to get a Whopper when you get to the window. People that buy properties, those properties are zoned for something specific, and you need to know going into that that's what it's zoned for. And if it's in my district, there's a high likeliness that it will not be rezoned because of what the problems that you've heard everybody speak of tonight. We have, unlike really all the other districts, we have roads that once you're on that road, there's no getting off. It's kind of like, getting in a line at Carowinds. Once you're in that line, you're in that line, and you're going to get on that ride, and if it breaks down, you're going to be sitting all afternoon. Well, a wreck on Highway 49 or 557 or Fuel Road or Pole Branch is devastating to our area because there's nowhere for anybody to pull off here and cut around and weave around and get to where they were originally going in any timely fashion. It's a very unique thing for us because Highway 49 is, cuts through, and if it happens right there at the bridge, Lord forbid, people coming from Charlotte can't get home, and sometimes it's hours. This past Friday night, I had an event going on, and a large number of the people could not even get there. They would have been 3 hours late getting to dinner. And it's not a good thing. And here's the unfortunate part of this. The liability for a developer now in District 2, the Lake Wiley side of District 2, is what's already come before you. Because what's been allowed before you was not great. A lot of it was not great. Some of it was okay, but a lot of it was not great. It's extremely dense development. That's why I'm sitting in this seat tonight. That's why I felt like I needed to represent the people, because I am a strong voice, and I'm willing to use it when I need it. And what came before and what's sitting idle right now, getting extended permit after extended permit, is, in my opinion, unacceptable. And unfortunately, it catches nice guys like you with a great plan, and it makes me have to say, you know what, we can't accept this. And, you know, people can come back with a by right plan, and we'll have to accept it. And some of those plans are not even as good as what you've offered. But there's a lesson in this for everybody on this council, for everybody in York County, and that is we have got a phenomenal place for people to live. We offer something for everybody. If you want to live in a little urban area, you can do that right in Fort Mill. You want to live on the lake, you can do that. You want to live out in the country, you want to have a farm and have horses, you can do that. You want to live near the scenic Broad, you can do that. But what we have to, as a council, realize is that we need to maintain these different areas. We can't all become the same thing. York County can't be, you know, just the same for everybody. We have to maintain the differences that we have. And I struggle with this all day long, every day with Lake Wylie, simply because, you know, it's a hot spot, it's close to Charlotte, and I understand all that. But they're issues. They're issues that I need this council to, you know, help me solve for the people who do choose to live here. And it doesn't just affect the people who live in Lake Wylie. So it's not just about Lake Wylie. It's about people that are driving from Adna Church Road and have to take Highway 49 or Pole Branch to get to Belmont or Charlotte. So it is a big deal. I believe that Pennies for Progress is a great thing. And I'm always anxious when a vote, something like this comes up before a vote, a referendum comes up. I'm like, okay, how did my district do? Did my district like this? Did my district not like this? And, you know, I always want to know. But I have to say that this rezoning and a couple other rezonings that are still ahead of us become a liability for some really great things. Because what I've learned and what the people of my district will learn from me is that, you know, the bigger we make the roads, the more cars we're going to have to sit behind, and that's a problem. So when I say, you know what, I no longer support Pennies for Progress, you've probably lost District 2 on that. And that's a bold statement for me to make, but I feel very strongly. And the more we pack these homes in, and the longer we have to sit in traffic, the less likely we are to widen and extend our country roads. I want to be sure I said everything because I have a tendency to ramble too.
You did say the part about the Whoppers and the.
Yeah, I got that. Yeah. Did you like that? Did you like it?
Kevin wrote it down.
Okay. So I just, you know, again, I have to apologize to MI Homes. And I'm going to say this to you. In my 2 years on council and my few years before I was on council dealing with this, you've got the best plan of any developer that's come before this council for my district. But it's unfortunate that what's been allowed and what's still sitting idle, and that's a lot of homes, is the people of my district don't even know that yet. They haven't even seen what I know yet. So that's the reason that I'm asking my fellow council members to help me in denying this tonight.
Mr. Williams.
Yes, I would agree. I think MI Homes has come up with a real good plan. And I've sat here a lot and had Ms. Goff come up here most of the time, not by herself, and speak against stuff that was by right. And I've told folks of Lake Wylie the whole time that I can't do anything when it's by right. But if it's a zoning change, I can do something about that. In fact, we talked about a moratorium at one point, and it was only gonna be about denying zoning changes. Well, we can do that without a moratorium. But at any rate, that's typically what I do is, because there are some plans that are better than the existing by right zoning. I think this one might be. Lake Wylie, the citizens of Lake Wylie do not, and I made one promise when I ran, and that was listen to the people. And for that reason and that reason alone, I will support the motion, which is denial. So Yeah, that's opposite of what I was thinking.
Anybody else? Yes, sir, Mr. Roddy.
I guess I had a couple of questions. You know, we see some of the notes that staff put in, and, you know, the builder says they were willing to do the improvements. I've been here 8 years. I have yet to see a community come up and say, yeah, we want 200 homes, or we have a road passing with a grade A, B, or C. All of our roads are failing. And I think going away from today, going forward, that's a challenge that we all face. Whether it was 50 homes, I think we would hear from the same neighbors. Whether it's 200 homes, we're gonna hear from the same neighbors. I have yet to see a community come up and say, we wanna see another 50, 60, 70, let alone 200. So going forward, what I would like to see happen is, if 217 homes is not a feasible number, what is a feasible number based on staff's recommendation? You know, we see some of the comments that go on in some of the proposals and recommendation contingencies and conditions, I mean. So for this community, I think staff owes it to the developer. I think staff owes it to us to kind of say, hey, in this situation, what is a reasonable number of homes? Because we're gonna have these come up. Let us know what's doable. We know 217 is not doable. Even with the improvements to the road, it only goes to, from a F to a D. If it was a C, would it be feasible? Would the community step up and say, hey, we welcome this? I don't think so. If it was 50 homes, I still don't think this community would come up and say it's acceptable. But for me, I would like to know, with this particular project, or anyone that comes forward, if staff's not gonna recommend it at this level, what is a good level to present to the developers? Hey, if this was coming in at not 217, if it was 150, staff would agree with it. If it was 89 homes, staff would agree. Help us get some kind of direction, because we're gonna see these projects come before us. And I've said it before, the majority of our roads are failing. So if we're gonna base it solely off failing roads, then we can just say no more building in York County, because I'm sure over 90% of our roads are getting failing grades. So how do we proceed? Because we just can't say we can't build anymore anywhere in York County because our roads are failing. We need to have some kind of idea on, with this particular property, not just this one, but if another 60 acres came open, or 40 acres, or 150 acres, where do we need to be falling with these housing projects so that some projects can move on if the builder or developer decides that's a doable number? Because the next project that comes up, we're gonna see an uprising of neighbors. If it's 60 homes, no one's coming up to say, hey, yeah, bring it on. We need more cars on the road. We need more HOA dues connecting our roads and homeowners associations. So from my standpoint, I would like to know, when staff says no, I would like to see a subline that says, this is where staff kind of maxes out on this particular project, because it just leaves us sitting like, well, where do we go from here? Because we know all of our roads are failing. And we know the number one thing that neighbors and residents come and pitch is traffic. There's nothing we can do about traffic. We're gonna be behind on roads and traffic for the next 15 years, trust me. That's a given. We can't penny for progress our way out of roads. We can't penny for progress our way out of traffic. So where do we go? Help us make some decisions, because the next one gets coming up. If it's more than 5 homes, I can see neighbors banding together, coming to meet and saying, no, we don't want it. But is that the solution to what we're facing the next 10, 15, 20 years? It's just gonna turn into we can't build any more subdivisions because our roads are failing. Well, they're gonna be failing, trust me. There's no indication going forward that our 90% failing roads are gonna get to a C or B status. We may just take A off the chart. A and B needs to get off the chart. If we can just get to a C, I think that's about the best we can ever hope for with our roads right now. And going forward, I would like for staff to send me a list of A and B roads in this county. We probably won't get any. So we're dealing with roads and traffic and neighbors, so help me, help us get a vision of what a new development in York County is gonna look like. Because we're not gonna see 150 developments, 150 home developments coming into York County if the TIA is a big indicator of whether this project can fly. I spoke with Allison about this project. I support her. She knows what she wants to see in her district. I'll support her in the no vote, but going forward, I like to know, help me, because I plan on being here another 4 years. I just got reelected, so the next 4 years, I want to be able to educate myself to know how to handle these situations. But, you know, I think I've said enough. I think we need, as a council, we need to have some guidance on what we need to expect going forward. Because the days of 200 homes going in any subdivision, I think that's not gonna happen. That's not gonna happen. Unless you, over on the western side in Roberts area, or down in the Sticks and Christie's area, or on the back side of my district. But some of the hot spots, we're not gonna see them anymore. I think I got some land in District 4, and Robert's got plenty in his area, and Christie's got some, but we're not seeing people wanting to bring it to these districts. We're seeing the Clovers, the Fort Mill, the TKKs, Lake Wiley. And that's what we're having to deal with, so help us going forward.
And let me just wrap it up by, I've always supported a council member in their district with zoning questions, concerns, and I will do the same this time. I think Mr. Roddy pointed out some excellent points. I don't see how a builder could have done any more to be accommodating, essentially 1 unit per acre. But the TIA is really not improved to any reasonable extent. And I think Ms. Love kind of spoke it in a polite way about how it's really not knocking the builder. It's just there's just no room for growth right now in that area. And so, that being said, question on the motion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
No.
Mr. Chairman, before you
Yes.
call this,
Yes, sir.
I have given a letter to the clerk of council recusing myself on this next vote because I represent the applicant. So give me a second.
Okay.
That's how you do it. Good for you.
Did you get the, no? Okay. Consider first reading case number 1818 to rezone BD1 to RC1 at 373 Forest Way Drive, Fort Mill Community. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
Michael.
Next item. Consider third reading case number 1819 UD rezoning project.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. Question on the
I do-
John? Sorry, Ms. Cox.
When these UDs come up, I just assume, since I have not gotten any feedback from the residents, is that the folks in my district have chosen the district that they want to be in, and that there's no issue here, that there's not a problem. So y'all correct me if I'm ever wrong.
I thought this was what we were. This one's okay. Okay.
Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Next item, council to approve third reading of an ordinance to amend the code of the County of York, South Carolina to dissolve the York County Board of Rural Fire Control to transfer the rights and responsibility for administering the York County Rural Fire District to the York County Council, to establish the Fire Advisory Committee, to otherwise provide for the provision of fire protection services in York County, and to provide for other matters related thereto.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion.
I have a question.
Yes, Ms. Love.
So I'm in agreement with dissolving the the Board of Rural Fire Control. What I'm not in agreement with is I'm in agreement with establishing the Fire Advisory Committee. What I'm not in agreement with is who is on that committee. So is that a part of this vote as well, or is that still something that can be discussed separately?
It's not spelled out in the ordinance who's sitting on that committee.
So we would still be able to have a discussion
Yes.
about that, is that?
Right.
specific about names, the individuals themselves, or how it's split up, the east-west?
Both, not particular people, but how it is, just how it is split up, and the fact that we have a county employee on it, and I feel like we should not have a county employee on the committee. I think oversight is okay, but I don't think we should have a county employee on that committee, and I just have some concerns that I'd like to be able to talk about, you know.
That is part of the ordinance.
That is definitely
part of the ordinance. The names themselves, but the ordinance itself establishes and sets that committee up.
Okay.
Anybody else? Mr. Johnson?
I have voted for this. I'm going to vote for this. This needs to happen, but I also want to raise a concern I have. We removed the paid firefighters from being employees of the county. I think they should be employees of the county. If you want control over what's happening in some of these firehouses, you have to actually make them employees. I'm not talking about the volunteers. I'm talking about the actual, the paid firefighters. And yet we've somehow decided, well, no, we're not going to make them employees. We're going to continue to let them basically be run by their fire boards as their HR departments and make all of their discipline decisions. And, well, folks, that's where we got to where we are tonight. So I don't think that, I don't, maybe I'll have support, but I don't know. But I'm going to make a motion to amend the original motion to require that all paid firefighters be employees of York County.
And so what if those paid people?
Well, do we have a second on that amendment?
No.
I'll second for discussion.
So, okay, Mr. Williams?
Yeah, I guess, I thought that what we agreed to, and I mean, that we were concerned about administrative control, and that they fall under the county for administrative control, but supervisory and on-site, they fall under the fire chief, which we weren't as concerned about, and that's what they were concerned about. So I thought that we had come to an agreement that we were both happy with.
Ms. Cox?
I am under the impression that what we have expressed to the chiefs when we met with them at the workshop is that issue is not being decided tonight. And I think it would be a tremendous problem between our relationship with them for us to do something that we said we weren't going to do. I'm not speaking to the merits of the amendment. I just think that it's not the appropriate time to do it in concerning fairness and transparency with these folks. I think that we owe it to them not to take up an issue that we specifically said we would not under this.
Yeah, I agree with that, but my point was, I think we've already addressed it. I thought we addressed it during that we had gotten the administrative control that was going to allow us to take advantage of reduced cost, and they retained operational control, which I thought was the issue. But if nobody seems to know, then.
Mr. Winkler?
I agree that eventually, I think the best option is going to be for all of the paid firefighters to be county employees. I think that's what it's going to come to. But at that meeting with the chiefs that we had when we had our special called meeting, you know, the decision was made, or they were told at that time, that we would not make that decision at that time. We would wait on that we would get this through. And this ordinance was unanimously approved and presented to us by the Fire Chiefs Association. So I support the ordinance as it's written right here, but I would not support the amendment at this time. I do think it's something we need to readdress.
So, question?
No,
I have a question. We have to vote on the amendment.
Need to vote on the amendment.
Yeah, we're just about the amendment. Well, don't sound like we're gonna have enough support for the amendment anyway, so.
Well,
We're gonna vote on it.
Everybody,
We're gonna vote on it.
okay, here we go. We're gonna question on motion, of the amended motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no?
No.
No.
I have
Did you get it?
Question.
Okay, so now we're back to the original motion. Any further comments? Ms. Love?
So if they were paid employees, would that mean that the Fire Advisory Committee would include all paid employees? Or, I mean, why would, I'm just not happy with this advisory committee, so I would rather not have the paid employees be on the Fire Advisory Committee. if we're gonna make them all employees, which I would support if that were the case, I would not want the Fire Advisory Committee to be made up of employees.
Okay, any other comments?
So do,
Mr. Roddy?
so do we have any kind of ordinance currently that says county employees can't serve on boards or commissions? Is that what you're saying? Would that, is
I'm
that
just
the kind of
saying-
issue that if they're an employee of the county, they can't be on this board?
I'm just saying that if we're gonna have a fire advisory committee, I think it's somewhat of a conflict to have those people. We already have one employee who is the tiebreaker on that committee. I would rather have fire chiefs, if they're all chiefs, and I think they are, who are not paid employees. I'd like to have this committee be more of a fire department committee than a county employee committee.
Mr. Williams?
If I remember correctly, that the fire chiefs came up with this, and that, it was their idea to not have it controlled, to have it controlled by staff, and it's actually it's the advisory board for our staff person, which is why, that's written into the ordinance, and I guess that's why she doesn't have a vote, that has a vote. If there's a tie, then she gets a tie, but it's an advisory committee for her to make decisions, and the fire chiefs actually wanted it that way. That's how it came to where it is, but I agree with Ms. Cox. I'm really reluctant to make any changes here at third reading without running it by the chiefs, but.
What if we, can I make a motion to defer until the next council meeting? And then we could,
You're adding an amended motion now?
yes, an amended motion to defer this until our next council meeting, and we could ask.
Technically, what you need to do is vote this one down and then make that one, but.
That would be easier for me. I like that.
I mean, that's how it's, that's how
Yeah.
you would do that.
I still have one comment or question, I guess.
Mr. Winkler?
This is an advisory committee. This is not a committee that makes the vote and that is what happens. This is an advisory committee to advise our fire services. It's not a board that has the final say, so there's not like there has to be a 2-3 vote or whatever. This is just an advisory committee to our services.
It's not the final step in any process.
Ms. Cox?
I will say that I do think that it is a potential problem that we at least need to get some input from our management and from our legal counsel as to whether or not there exists a conflict of interest for folks who are paid to serve on that committee. I mean, we're sitting here and we're going to have third reading on the special tax board and only having 2 folks on there to where they don't have majority control. So I think if that's the concern that I hear Ms. Love express, I think that's something that we can address afterwards. But I'm going to support this tonight simply because the fire chiefs came to us and specifically said unanimously that this is what they wanted to do. Now, I have some questions, but that's what they said they wanted to do, and so that's why.
So question on the motion, all those, I'm sorry, Mr. Williams.
All I was gonna do is add, I think that's what Andy was referring to, is that actually, we could make that decision and pass this ordinance and make that decision about whether or not paid people are on there. So I think that, I agree with that. I think that supports it.
So question on the motion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
No.
Next item, council to approve second reading of an ordinance to amend the code of York County, South Carolina to provide that no more than 2 volunteer firefighters may serve at any one time as members of the board of any special tax district established for the purpose of providing rural fire protection services pursuant to section 4930 of the Code of Laws of South Carolina, 1976, as amended.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion.
One
Mr.
clarifying
Winkler.
question. It states that no more than 2 volunteer firefighters in the special tax district. Are the paid firefighters allowed to be on there? Is it just,
They've been excluded.
okay, so they're not allowed at all. It doesn't say that. does it?
That's, yes, sir.
Okay. No, paper, okay.
Question on the motion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Next item, council to approve second reading of an ordinance to amend the code of York County, South Carolina to establish a board of rural fire control for the Bethel Rural Fire District and to transfer authority to manage and operate Bethel Rural Fire District from an administrative division of York County to such Bethel District Board of Rural Fire Control.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. Question, Mr. Williams.
I still say that we'd be best using this to come up with the model, but since staff has no problem with it, we'll support it.
Question on the motion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Had one, no, did you get it? Our new business, first item is the thing that was moved out of consent agenda. Council to give first reading by title only of an ordinance amending the Code of the County of York, Chapter 154, plat approval process, transferring the approval and disapproval authority for submitted plans or plats, including sketch plans, preliminary plans, and final plans from the Planning Commission to a designated staff member as authorized by the Local Government Planning Act, making appropriate corresponding amendments to the Appendix 1 to the code, and providing other matters related thereto.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Winkler.
I just have some questions for staff, I guess. What is the purpose? What are we trying to fix here? What are we, why do we have this before us tonight? What are we trying to fix that's not working properly now and make work better? Because I don't understand that part. So.
Well, that may be a question Ms. Love wants to answer. She initiated it, but I can tell you the practical ramifications of it. Really, just right now, if there's a preliminary plat, it has a deadline, comes to us. We review it to make sure it complies with all our codes. If it does, we send it to the Planning Commission. Planning Commission basically is bound to approve it, provided that it has met all our codes. There can be some discussion about adding some additional requirements or making some negotiated amendments to it. But for the most part, they are compelled to approve the preliminary plat that meets all our standards. Planning Commission, that gives them a little bit of heartburn because they feel like they have to rubber stamp something that staff has approved. So that's one issue. I think the second issue is that since it is kind of an administrative thing where we review it to make sure it complies with all our codes, if we did that at a staff level, the Planning Commission, the developer or the person submitting the plan would not have to wait the 2 to 3 to 6 weeks, whatever it is, to get on the agenda and wait for it to go to the Planning Commission. So it is something that would, in a lot of cases, help the developer get that answer quicker on their preliminary plat. But state law allows for it to be done either way, and it's not something that we really have a preference for doing. I think the one benefit for staff would be that it may make our Planning Commission meetings a little bit shorter. But other than that, and in order to help developers speed their projects along a little bit and not have to wait for the ruling of the Planning Commission, other than that, there's not a lot of reason to do it.
And that brings up one other question on what your answer then. Are they legally required by law, I guess, or to basically rubber stamp whatever comes from staff, or is that something that they can, because obviously they can add a few amendments or tweak it a little, so.
Sure. The most of it is regulatory and simply applying the standards, the development standards, to the preliminary plat, which is the plat and issue here. If there's an unfavorable, any approval or disapproval by the staff, the statute also allows an interested party to appeal that issue to the Planning Commission. So the Planning Commission's role would switch from being a approval body on the preliminary plat to an appellate body if there is some issue and disagreement on the staff approval level.
Anybody? Mr. Williams.
Yeah, I guess I'd heard that it doesn't have something to do with these requests for early requests for extensions. Does it help with that at all?
That is a corresponding change that we've been asked to provide counsel, but this particular amendment is strictly for the preliminary plat approval process. I think the remainder of the plans and plats that are approved are at the staff level. So this one is unique in that preliminary plat has been delegated to the Planning Commission. And as Mr. Hudspeth mentioned, the state code allows either process.
This fixes that or sets the tone for something that will?
Pardon me?
This fixes that problem or sets the tone for something? I mean, this moves the decision.
This moves the approval aspect of the planning commission on preliminary plats
Whether
to
it's an
the,
extension
to the
or-
staff level. The extension's not an issue in this ordinance.
Okay.
The extension will be an issue in a subsequent amendment
Okay,
that
that
we've
was
been
my
asked to prepare.
Yeah, okay.
Ms. Cox?
We've talked about a lot of different issues that aren't before us tonight, but I just want to go on record as saying what my position is on them. I do think that our planning commission needs to be able to, and the ordinance that we spoke of, that's not before us tonight, is the one that is the interpretive value of whether or not a planning commission can determine just cause for an extension. And we've obviously talked about this as a council, and we've exchanged emails, but I think that we are essentially rendering our PC moot without giving them the flexibility to be able to make that decision on just cause. So I do support that, and I've still been waiting for an ordinance. Whether we vote it up or down, I still would like to see it come before us and let us answer to the people when that ordinance comes up as to how we vote. On this specific one, I think if this makes it in line with what we're currently doing with the technicalities of a plan, then I support this, unless staff sits here and tells me that they do not recommend that we do this, because as I understand it, the Planning Commission disregarded, or the majority of the Planning Commission disregarded the advice of staff on this particular issue, which I think is what prompted this. So if you've got real objections about it and think it's a problem, I'd like to know that, but I'm getting more and more comfortable with what's going on in our planning department. I think this is an appropriate transition.
I would just say that we do support it. I think it's a good idea just because it streamlines the process. From the staff level, it's not a reaction to the fact that they didn't go along with what I recommended. That was a separate issue, but I understand what you're saying. And I think, this issue of whether to extend a preliminary plat or something, I guess would still be, if we were doing these at the staff level, we'd still make that at the staff level. Michael, is that?
We're going to have to flesh that out, but that would be one of the options to consider.
Mr. Winkler?
I'll just say, I still have questions, but this is first reading. I'm gonna support it on first reading, and I'll get those questions answered over the next few weeks. But I do support somehow, some way of us looking at these people that are not due for review for 7 months, but because they think we may be changing something in 7 months, they're coming back now and asking for that extension that they're not due for 7 months. That's totally wrong in my opinion.
Yeah, that would be untimely.
And I think we need to look at that. And I also have expressed before, I think we need to look at whether or not it is truly an automatic extension that they just get because they asked for it. Because if that's the case, then I think the ordinance should have been written that it was if it's 3 years with 5 extensions, then it should be they get 8 years. And there's no reason to come back for a 1-year extension because they automatically get it. So I think that needs to be addressed.
Mr.
That's a
Roddy.
different issue, different reasons for that.
Do we not have any, I guess, what I'm hearing is, will we be better suited, if it's not just automatic, like Robert just mentioned, what's that window to come back and apply for an extension? If we're saying 7 months is too long, should we have some language that says 2 months, 3 months prior to come back for an extension? Because if we don't have anything that says, you can do it at 8 months.
The statute says you need to come towards the end of the expiration period, so the annual, the 2-year approach, or the coming for one and then coming on the heels of that approval for another, there at least is language in the code, the state code, that suggests that's an inappropriate request.
So are we saying that they should wait 3 months? Is that, because when you say we're coming in on the heels, obviously, yeah, 7 months does seem a little far out if we just did it a year ago, or in this case, it'd be 5 months ago. So do we need to put that language in that says 2 months prior to the expiration, an extension can be applied for? If that's kind of what I'm hearing.
You could maybe say 60 days prior. Right now, we have one coming up on the,
Right.
we've got one that's been requested to be on the agenda Planning Commission agenda in December, and they're a year early. We just granted it in October, and they're coming back now again, because they're trying to get ahead of what we're trying to fix.
Gotcha.
Briefly, if I may, Mr. Chairman, just.
Yes, sir.
What the statute says is that the landowner of real property with a vested right may apply at the end of the vesting period to the local governing body for an annual extension of the vesting right. So if you haven't, that's unclear, so the 60, 90, whatever the days are, that could be one of the amendments. But clearly, getting a third extension after just getting the second is not the end of the vesting period.
Gotcha.
So just to wrap it up then, I'm going to support this since it's first reading, because anytime you can make government more efficient, I'm all for that. Now, let's be honest, there's a chance for abuse of this. I mean, with the Planning Commission, you have whatever it is, 7, 9 members that kind of are a filter among themselves. And it kind of helps ensure a more democratic process. When it's turning over to staff, it puts more burden on them. All the problems we've dealt with over the past couple of years in planning, and turnover and concerns and not knowing which way to turn and stress conditions, this has the potential for that too. So I don't want to see something being a burden to the planning department and creating more of a problem. So as this is massaged and worked out, I think this needs to be looked at, because here again, I think this had been, and Chad, you can help me, but 10, 12, 15 years, this had kind of been worked out to the point of satisfaction of the county and previous councils. Here again, that doesn't mean we can make it better. I mean, I'm all for that. But there's a lot of potential pitfalls that we're gonna have to deal with on this. But that warning being said, I'm gonna just allow it to be cultivated some and see what we come up with, but I'm gonna be a little bit leery of it. Question? Yes, sir.
The fact that the Planning Commission is still an appellate should alleviate most of those concerns.
Yeah, that'll help some. Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Next item, council to adopt a resolution to support, authorize, and empower York County elected officials, including its chairman and vice chairman, York County management, administrative personnel, staff, and/or any other designees to close on approximately 1,900 acres of real property and to participate in and execute the documents necessary to perfect the real estate closings related to the county's acquisition of this real property in York County for purposes of serving outdoor recreation and other purposes, to authorize formally the county manager and treasurer to utilize up to $1 million in York County Forever funding, which has been endorsed by the York County Forever Board, to apply toward the property acquisition, to ratify any and all such actions of the county officials, staff, and commission members in furtherance of the real property acquisition, and to address other matters related thereto. Can I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Next item, council to approve the agreement and authorize its execution of signing the contract between Blue Group Assets LLC and NNP 4 Catawba LLC dated September 24th, 2018, from Blue Group Assets LLC to York County.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Next item, council to approve the agreement and authorize its execution, assigning the contract between Blue Group Assets LLC and Mary Ann Keith Hoke dated November 9th, 2018, from Blue Group Assets LLC to York County.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Next item, council to provide first reading by title only of an ordinance to amend the code of the County of York, South Carolina, to amend Chapter 152, Stormwater Management and Sediment Control, in order to protect, maintain, and enhance the environment of York County in the short-term and long-term public health, safety, and general welfare of the citizens of York County by establishing requirements and procedures to control the potential adverse effects of increased stormwater runoff associated with both future development and existing developed land, to comply with the federal and corresponding state stormwater discharge NPDES regulations 40 CFR 122.26 and South Carolina regulations 61 through .122.26, developed pursuant to the Clean Water Act, and to ensure that York County has the authority to take any action required by it to obtain and comply with its NPDES permit for stormwater discharges, and to provide for a public hearing, and to provide for other matters related thereto.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion. Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Next item, there are no committee reports. Is there any council new non-agenda comments? Yes, sir. Mr. Winkler.
I have a quick one. I just want to remind everyone that this weekend is the York Historical Society's Christmas Tour of Homes on Saturday and Sunday. If you like a lot of the big historic homes that you drive by going in and out of town and you think you'd like to see inside of some of them, there will be several of them on tour this weekend for a mere price of $15 a person, which goes to the Historical Society. You can get inside those homes, you can see them decorated, and there are docents there that will tell you the history of the home, when it was built, who's lived there, any things that happened along the way, ghost stories, different things that might be a lot associated with it. So it's a good opportunity, Saturday and Sunday both. I believe it's like 3 to 8, but you can go on their website and find that. So.
Mr. Roddy.
I have two quick things. I just want to remind staff and council members and those people who are maybe be in attendance at our next council meeting. We're having our ugly Christmas sweater situation. So all of us council members hopefully have agreed to kind of put on something Christmassy or even ugly if you got it. Bill, they tell you just wear your regular sweater. But we just want to have a little fun and spread the Christmas cheer. And so if anybody coming to the council meetings, council meeting on the 17th, if you want to participate with council and staff, that includes Andy, David.
Include anybody that signs up to speak.
Larry, Darryl.
Then on a more serious note, I think with all the conversation going on about the land purchase and the H-tax and CBBR, I think we probably owe it to ourselves to kind of hear some of those, hear from Billy in a workshop or something, how some of the idea to come up with the various funding sources that's out there, like I say, working with the hotels, maybe run some projections if we were doing this, 5 years ago, kind of what those numbers would look like, because at least that will give us an idea on where he could possibly land on the funding, and definitely give us an idea if things don't work out, how do we go back and readjust, because there's a chance it may work, there's a chance it may not work. And I think we owe it to ourselves going forward to at least hear this now before we get into it, that it may be a possibility that down the road it's not working like we thought it could, and just kind of keep an open mind of what we could be able to go back to if things don't work out according to plan. So I think we owe it to him and ourselves to kind of have that instead of just a 2-minute situation. I think we owe that to him and his staff to hear maybe some of the ways he could possibly make it work, and if our staff have some other ideas, maybe we can have that conversation at that time. But I don't think 2 minutes is a good avenue for him to make his case.
That it. I will add on to what Mr. Roddy said, that we all of us believe in the importance of tourism here in South Carolina. It's the number 1 or 2 industry in the state, depending on which group you talk to. So we want to make sure that it's a workable group and that we're there to be flexible and work with them some. There are no citizens' concerns, so we have a motion for executive session.
Sure, I move we go into executive session to discuss a contractual matter involving the Motorola agreement, to discuss a contractual matter involving the financing agreement with the Rock Hill York County Convention and Visitors Bureau, and to receive legal advice regarding potential intervention in the CWS rate mechanism case.
Second.
Discussion. Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. We'll be here back at 10 till. We just got out of executive session. There were 3 action items. Action item number 1, council to approve an amendment to the agreement with Motorola Solutions Incorporated dated June 22nd, 2012, to provide for a 7-year extension to the terms therein and the annual amount of $2,250,000 per year for a total amount of $15,750,000, RFP number 2532, regarding Motorola's comprehensive communication system contract and to additionally provide for the acquisition of 525 radios and related components in the amount of $2,480,827. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And Mr. Williams has two motions.
Yes, sir. I move that we void the financing agreement with the Rock Hill York County Convention and Visitors Bureau.
Second.
Discussion. Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. I move that we authorize the county attorney to file a letter requesting a public hearing in the Carolina Water Services rate mechanism case or to otherwise intervene.
Second.
Discussion. Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. If there's no other discussion to be had, we have a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.